The Upstairs to the Right music channel here on YouTube, and we are doing the Sunday at Mike's live stream. Do it every Sunday night, 11 p.m. Central European time, and we are so glad to have you here. I always start out these live streams by saying thank you so much for showing up for the live stream every time. Having you here is a great pleasure. Time is a valuable thing, and for you to spend a little bit of your time with me, well, I just want to let you know it's always appreciated. Thank you so much. While we wait for more people to show up here in the live stream, I will say greetings to Scott. Hey, Scott, how you doing? How was your weekend? I hope it was good. Hope you stayed out of trouble. I hope that everything worked out for you in your neighborhood there for the fires and everything. I'm hearing a lot of bad stories out of Portugal from friends of mine, and it's not very encouraging. Mr. Watson in the house. Hey, how you doing, Mike? Good to have you here. Yeah. Um, where shall I start? Well, I usually try to start out by talking about things that occur here on the Upstairs to the Right music channel this week. Tommy Mack. Hey, how you doing? Thank you so much. Good to have you here, Tommy. So yeah, I think what happened, I mentioned to you guys that I was interested in buying a digital pedal for my pedal board. I am trying to get it down to four pedals. And those four pedals are the Fender level set buffer, my first generation Nobles preamp, and my really high quality clone copy. And then the output has always been the issue. And in my case, I was using, as you guys know, the Moore radar there for a minute. And the thing is, with the Moore radar, great amps and cabs on it, but no digital effects. And I had considered buying the Zoom. What is that? CD 300 or something like that. Anyway, the Zoom effects. I had one before. Sorry, guys. I just had to pick up my cat out of this chair and move her. And again, I got a attack of cat hair in my eye. Um, the Moore unit. I'm sorry. The Zoom unit, and using that as my effects as an all-in-one, because you can change different effects with that. But uh, then I started hearing about, of course, the number one, which I'm going to have to do another probably this week video on the Pocket Master, because I have to say, well, I love you. I had a Zoom in '95. Yeah, I still have my Zoom 606. If you listen to the guitar solo I did on my song The Sower, that's done with a Zoom 606. All the guitar parts on that is a Zoom 606. And you would not know. You would not know. So I would say that, that some of those Zoom pedals, even back in the day, were good. And so the Zoom, of course, I had the Zoom multi effects pedal, but then the Pocket Master, which is really, I think, is going to be ending up being one of the number one selling units this year. I think everybody and their mom has one or two or three actually because they're so cheap. They're about $50. But in that, you have cabs, you have amps, and you also have effects. And that makes my pedal board, which is where I want it to be, down to four pedals. I can use the Moore and, I'm sorry, I can use the Pocket Master in a lot of different ways for recording. I don't plan on using any of the amps. Like I said, the Nobles preamp that I have here, first generation Nobles here, same as the ODR1, same circuit as ODR1, but this based on a Fender Blackface. But as a preamp, this one is it's this analog pedal beats any digital preamp that I've heard. But what I can use the Pocket Master for is for its cabinet simulations and for its effects. So I'm excited about that. That should be here tomorrow, actually. And I've actually got the spot cleared out here on my pedal board up here above me. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. This is not just a random discussion about the Pocket Master. It's just going to lead into another thought that I have here. Mr. Rogers in the house in Ireland. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Ireland is always beautiful this time of year. Guys, we're going to talk tonight about the 10 things guitarists don't really need anymore. And I used to think that I needed, you know, when I was working in the studios, I used to think that I needed everything. You know, I needed, you know, this, that, and the other, and I needed a rack of these, and I need at least four, reverb units, and two compressors, and all this stuff. I used to have a rolling rack that stood about this high, that had nothing but quadriverbs in it. I had a lexicon that my prized possession at that time, and a bunch of stuff in it that I used at that time, and I just felt that I needed more. But over time, I realized that less can be more. I always start out telling the story about Prince's studio, and I love the fact that Jesse Johnson, the guitarist of the time, and his co-writer on a lot of stuff, Jesse played on a lot of stuff, and he said that Prince's studio was super minimal. Like, he said it was a joke, almost a joke. He said, but I like that because it let me know that I was on the right track of things. Keeping it minimal. This channel's motto is I'm good. And I make content, there's a lot of YouTubers who are catching up to some of the things that I've been talking about the drop off on YouTube music channels viewership. But and different, oh, you should make content like this, or you should make content like that, or use your shorts for this or that or the other. You know, I like making content with what works and showing and making albums with it and saying, hey, I made this album using this equipment. And as minimal as that is, smarter spending, avoiding unnecessary clutter has actually started to work out for me. So today, in that mindset, I was thinking about 10 things that guitarists really don't need anymore. And some final thoughts about where the amp market is going in conjunction with all of these modelers that are hitting the market at different price points. And quite frankly, the quality, depending upon your application, can really get you there, that 95% that I'm always talking about. That's good enough. Maybe even 100% sometimes. Um, and tube amps, just to touch upon that first, since I've got it here in my mind first. First, let me check the chat here. Tommy Mac, digital effects are a great way to have a bulk of different sounds. You can learn what you like and learn your style. Yeah, even more importantly for me is I know what effects chain that I like to use, and this hybrid digital analog pedal board for recording and whatever that I'm building here. Um, Really is the best of both worlds. I won't go 100% digital. I still believe in analog pedals. And one of the reasons I like the Fender level set pedal is buffer is not only it's a good buffer, but also emulates the load that you would get into a real tube amp as well. And you take a little analog sprinkles of salt and you put that on top of your digital cake and you got yourself 99% of the way there. Enough for recording, certainly. And certainly if you know how to record, use effects and things like that, you can certainly simulate the effect. Now, of course, there are guys out there who can't hear the difference, and I can hear it myself as well. But I've always been of the theory that most people can't. And so that trying to get that extra 5% may be chasing the dragon, I guess. You don't need a bank loan to get what you need these days. You certainly don't. You certainly don't. You can build a rig these days for recording, either digital through your computer or a hard disk digital recorder. You can put a studio together for under $1,000 these days. You really could, and go to work, no problems. And the good, I'm good in the sense that I need, Mike says, more new guitar gear. Like I need a fresh hole in my head. And speaking of Prince, I need another lover like I need a hole in the head. You know, I hear you. I hear you, Mike. You know, honestly speaking, because of the great leaps in technology that we won't get into the dark side of that. We've already touched upon that. But from a recording, so from a creative side, you can go super minimal these days. You can go super minimal. And the amps really were in a tough place anyway. The first reason they were in a tough place is because clubs really weren't accepting them anymore. Even far back as to when I was with my band, you know, some of the venues, they really frowned upon that and wanted you to go direct if possible. And I didn't mind. I was like, fine, as long as I can use my pedal board and keep at least some consistency in my sound, that's fine. But that was the beginning. And of course, that's gotten worse because there's less venues. But of course, modelers, IRs, and solid state amps cover 95%. Again, that 95% I always talk about applies across the board to a lot of things. Get you 95% of the tones without the weight, the cost, or the maintenance of the tube amp. And from the basement, the home recordist, the home, noodler, having a full size stack is just not going to happen. It may work for Marty McFly, not going to work for us. We don't have Doc Spaceman, so we can't really do that. And so that was also a nail in the coffin of tube amps. And myself personally, I've recorded with a tube amp, since day one. But as you guys know, within the last, I'd say year and a half now, I stopped using a tube amp. As a matter of fact, I've packed my good 72 Greenback away. I took it out of the amp, packed that away. And I've moved over to this hybrid system that I'm still working on. And so I think that's where the amp market is heading with a lot of cats. It may not be a tube amp, but you get that analog and digital hybrid thing going, it produces quite a sound. And again, these analog pedals are the pedals that I know how to use. I know how to dial them in to get the sound that I want. And so you still have a little bit of that tactile feeling to your pedal board as well, as opposed to just having one little digital box. Of course, Quad Cortex and all those things have the knobs and all that, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them don't. As a matter of fact, the Pocket Master is best run from your phone, but it can't be run on its own, of course. But once I get it set and get the presets in it, it basically set up my usual effects chain and pick a cabinet that works best with my setup here, I'm going to set that preset, and that's going to be how I record. So probably 95% of that's going to be wasted on me, but the little bits that I do want and need are going to make things a lot more convenient. A lot more convenient. Another thing that really kind of number two on my list are cables. I have You know, what did this cost me? 35 bucks wireless system that I use for $35. I can go into this pedal and out of the Pocket Master when I get it, and set of headphones, and I'm good to go. Wireless units are cheap, they're reliable, and also even in that under $50 price range, you can get a set like these that are actually stage friendly as long as they're able to change frequencies. And most of the cheaper ones can do that. Um, I like, and I recorded with that. That song that I played for you guys that I recorded, something that I want to tell you. That song I recorded that wirelessly with the guitar parts, the solo, all that. That was all wireless through my board here. Imagine now that with that Pocket Master and the fact that you can record USB directly to your computer. That's kind of good for me. That's good for my setup. So, fewer cable tangles, fewer broken plugs, less noise in the system. And I actually like this. The sound going wirelessly sounds different than going through a cable. And I like the wireless sound. It's got a little extra, something to it. Whether I'm hearing that, I want to imagine I hear that or not, but there is something to that. So, I can't see myself investing in another cable again. I paid 35 bucks for this. I have cables, of course. I have a small studio here, but I don't use them. I don't. I use this wireless system pretty much for recording and for practicing. So cables are something that, and cables were really starting to climb up there in price anyway. They were starting to get a little pricey. Is that Maddie in the house I see? Hey, Maddie. Hey, how you doing, sir? Welcome. Cheers to you, sir. Glad to have you here, Mr. Two Hats. Ben in the house. Hey, Ben, how you doing, sir? No, 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 no. As I always say, better late than never, guys. Better late than never, and that applies to a lot of things. um, uh, yeah, that applies to a lot of things. I'll leave that for your minds to ponder upon. Number three, huge pedal boards. The fact that I can put together an analog digital hybrid board with four pedals. Again, my Fender level buff, my Nobles, and my Klon, and the Pocket Master when it shows up, taking the place of the Boomer Radar. I think that that for me, for one compact, multi effects unit like that, for example, the Pocket Master, to be able to take the place of three or four other pedals and just bring that pedal board because that's less noise. That's less things in that in that chain that can cause noise as well. And you know, once the Pocket Master comes in and I get it dialed in, that's really, frankly, something that, again, I'm not happy with the fact that it would be the only plastic cased pedal on my board. All the rest of these are really nice, old school, don't make it like them anymore kind of pedals. But it can also be my live rig as well. Very simple. Put it in one bag and go with one guitar, and I'm ready to go. It's got a lot of positives to it to have a small pedal board. You don't need to have the Death Star anymore. You really don't. And if you got the $1,700 to spend, you buy the Quad Cortex, then that thing does everything. That is the board. So, but again, you know, don't spill your beer on it. Is all I gotta say. you know, it's really fascinating that one multi-effect, multi-effects digital unit like that can cover so much territory, and so that's exciting. You know, the day of huge pedal boards are almost over. I think they're almost over. Going wireless does sound like fun. Yeah, you know, like I said, and if you get yourself a wireless headphone system, which I don't have, I'm pondering it. I have ear pods, but I'm talking about it. You got to have with a unit that connects to your phono output, and then a set of headphones that receives that signal. Um, but if you've got that going and you're doing that, you're completely wired. So you can walk around the house with your guitar, you know, and technically, depending upon the range, and that's, you know, that's just fun. That's just fun. being your being your PJs, you know, walking around, you know. Physical tuners. Yet again, you know, what inspired tonight's list, really, since I canceled the order on the other pedal and just decided to spend 35 bucks less and get the Pocket Master, by the way, saved money on it. And I was reading the manual on it, and this thing has a tuner in it. If you remember, I don't have it here because I put it away. On my pedal board up here, that was another pedal that I had between the Nobles and the level set buffer was just a little small mini tuner. And guess what? That's off the board now too, because the Pocket Master has a built-in tuner. And my my phone has a Fender tuner that's not the best, but you know it'll get you, you know, in the ballpark, and hopefully your ear will get you the rest of the way. Um, and so I just believe that physical tuners, clip-ons, and phone apps really make pedal tuners optional at this point. You know, a pedal tuner will take up the whole, like I said, it can take up that much to that much of your board space, and just a tuner alone. And like again, like I said, with the Pocket Master, guess what? Don't need it anymore. It's got the tuner covered. It's got the effects covered. It does the job of the Moore radar. Covers a lot of territory, and this stuff again is making other things obsolete. Mike says proper headphones are a good investment. Yeah, yeah, I've got quite a few here. I've got AKG my headphones. I have Sony headphones, and then a pair of cheapos too. But I use those to mix with because everybody uses a lot of different kind of headphones. You want to make sure that your mix sounds good, especially your mastering sounds good in a lot of different. At least your mix sounds good in a lot of different speakers, different set kinds of headphones and things like that. So I agree, Mike. Good investment. I have the Line 6, yes. And the Boss wireless my amp is wireless equipped, and the other came with my, yeah. And that's another thing. So I, you know, did I have that on the list? No, I didn't. Doggone it. This is gonna have to be. No, I didn't put it on the list. Yeah, sorry. It's gonna be 11 things because again, the Pocket Master has Bluetooth. It's Bluetooth. So, you know, you can, you know, Bluetooth things into it and play that through your headphones, jam along with it, or do other things. You know, there's a lot of options there. So, um, you know, that actually may, if I figure it out, that may actually solve my wireless headphone thing. I have to think about that. But either way, again, another thing that one little unit, little Pocket Master thing's about this big. I'll show it to you guys on Wednesday. I'm sure it'll be here by then. We'll talk about it. But really, it covers a lot of ground for 50 bucks, man. And that's got to hurt Wampler. That's got to hurt JHS. That's got to hurt Boss. That's, you know, go down the list because honestly, for a guy like me, and my motto is I'm good or, you know, more out for less. And I'm really trying to build a quality recording thing for, not a lot of money. I'm talking about the minimal equipment as possible. I don't think you guys really understand. You're not going to see, stacks of racks behind me anymore. Those days are over because, again, like I said, if Prince could record, 1999 on what he had, then the rest of us really have no excuse. So you really should learn how to use less. Maybe you'll make some better music. Who knows? Especially you're not screwing around turning knobs. Scott says, yeah, we talked about it. They're the wireless thing. I had to make that number 11. Um, Again, stacks and big cabs. 4x12 walls are overkill. Uh, FR speakers and small combos cover most needs. These Sonys that I have up here, I have used these to mix with for a long time, many 20 years now. They replaced my Yamaha NS10Ms. That's because I wanted to move into the realm of powered speakers. And this is my second set, by the way. And I've learned I can mix with this, and I learned how I can translate these near modern or powered speakers. I can translate that into a mix now because I know how it sounds. That's another thing, but that takes time. Learning your speakers, getting a pair of speakers and learning them and using them and understanding them and testing your mix in different places to know when something is balanced. And it doesn't matter what room you're in. Once you have that going for you, you can mix wherever, big or small, wherever. Treated, untreated, wherever. Music stands and paper charts aren't really needed anymore. Tablets with apps like Fourscore or OnSong replace binders and printed charts. Um, Hell, notation software that you can get with Studio One will do the notation for you for your tracks if you want. If you want to have your track scored, it'll score it for you. Um, and so but we saw that years ago, where the sheet music, sellers were going out of business. The only country that I know of, and again, I keep mentioning it, these guys, because they really are trying to hold on to the old schools, Japan, that you can still go into a bookstore and buy sheet music, buy, top 40s or whatever. You're not going to see that. Hell, you're not even going to see a bookstore in most parts of the world these days anymore. So that's another thing that musicians really don't need anymore. If you get yourself a tablet, you've got every song you could have imaginable available out there if you need to read music for it. And that's just a fact, unless it's a new song. And even then, they're just going to send you a PDF of the sheet music. And so those days are gone. That industry died out a long time ago, but you can see how technology replaces things. I dislike the new gear that is almost completely dependent on being connected to a separate device. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Scott, because I should have preambled all this by saying I'm not pleased with the fact that I bought a unit that works better, best, not better, works best when you connect it to your computer or to a phone. However, again, before I bought it, I did make sure that you can do it on its own, with it by itself on its own. And am I happy that it needs firmware updates? No. But if I bought the Zoom pedal, it would kind of been the same thing. So but I dig what you're saying there. And I also dislike things with built-in lithium batteries that are not user serviceable. Yeah, because you got yourself a built-in obsolescence there. But I figure if you don't, run the thing 24/7, keep it in a relatively good studio environment, and use it judiciously, I think that it'll last until the next thing next. But again, I can always revert back to square one because I still have an amp, I still have a good speaker, I still have good pedals. But I understand what you're saying. I feel that way as well, but I'm not going to let it stop me from trying this out, making that, like I said, little hybrid. And for my situation, it really works. Mr. Watson, there is an abandonment store in downtown Kansas City printed and sold sheet music. There's a, yeah, abandoned store. Yeah, yeah. And, that's going to be your amp, shop coming up because you can't use them in your apartment. Your neighbors, will chase you out of town with, pitchforks and tar. And the clubs don't want them anymore, really, honestly. And where else does that really leave you for them? And from a touring standpoint, I would rather build two of these pedal racks, one as my main and one as my backup. I could build that for cheaper than the cost of having a full rig that I'd have to hire a roadie to lug around. It's just the reality of it. And the audience will not know the sonic difference. You could do it like they used to do, put a fake, unconnected stack of Marshall 4x12s behind you for, just to look, stage looks, you know, for God's sake, you're going to be able to get them for cheap now anyway, because nobody really wants to use them for real. And, do that. But that's just the reality. And there are guys who used to have a Marshall stack. Who's that guitar player on stage? But it was all hollowed out in the back, and he's really just playing through a mic'd up 1x12, or 1x10 or something like that. And that's a true story. You have to look that up. I can't remember who that was. Somebody. And that's a fact. And unfortunately, that's just how that's going. I just want to play, not be a sound engine. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Once it's set, that's why I gotta have the analog part actually too, Scott, because I still gotta make some adjustments, and I still want to have some control. And that thing, as nice as the quad cortex is, that still looks like a piece that broke off the Death Star to me. And that's where I'll draw a line. I can't go that far. Sure, it's get you 100% of the way there, but not for me. Even if I had the bread. What do you guys think the future looks like for the boutique amp makers? Well, that's my point. Unless they can turn over enough, and because of tariff costs in order to get materials, it's not looking good. In my opinion, it's not looking good. Modelers, everybody and their mom is, building going 100% digital or building a hybrid analog digital pedal system like me and bypassing amps altogether. Yeah, there's a lot, and there's a lot of bad winds blowing against amps, particularly the boutique amp builders. I still use tab books sometimes, but Marty has taught me a lot of tunes as well. Future is bleak for any large tube amps. Yeah, any large ones, no. 1x12s, 1x8s, 1x10s. That's your sweet spot. Get yourself a 2x1. Solid state. But the big amps, no, no, no. It's bleak for them, in my opinion. I agree with Maddie. So, something that, I was hearing for a long time, oh, physical albums are back, CDs are coming back. There's a big upsurge. People want physical stuff. Maybe with the records, maybe that's okay, but CD sales are still, as a matter of fact, they're really dropping off. Um, Physical CDs are really obsolete for any kind of promotion. Not everybody has a CD player. um, just to be honest, anymore. And as a medium for a musician, it's just not happening. I'm starting to feel the same way about Bandcamp. I think that with Bandcamp, those are MP3s, and because of streaming like Spotify and stuff like that, MP3s are starting to be the new CDs or the new old the new old records. People don't know what to do with them. How do I play an MP3? What do I do with this? How do I store this? How do I access this? They don't know. And because Bandcamp is all about, instead of streaming from it, it's about MP3s. I think that oddly enough, MP3s are outdated, are getting to be outdated as CDs and albums are. And as a result of that, you know, oh gosh, the fact that people really don't know what to do with MP3s. You can buy a dedicated MP3 player, but who's going to do that? That's what my phone is supposed to be. And again, it's just something that people aren't interested in. I get a lot of view throughs on my Bandcamp page, but the sales, downloads, and things like that, I'm not getting a lot because again, I'm starting to think that MP3s are getting to be a little old fashioned. There is no way physical media is back. I read that all the time. It's not. Yeah, they were really and I don't know why they were pushing or what was the agenda, because it's always an agenda. It's always, let's not kid ourselves. But the truth of the matter is no. Um, I am going to get myself a record player and I am going to start a record collection because I want to. But but that's me. Most cats aren't going to want to do that. Bandcamp, unfortunately, does not have the pool of the evil on Spotify. No. And because it's streaming, it's less work for the end user. And let's be honest, folks are getting lazy. Folks are out there letting Chat GBT think for them and come up with it instead of feeding an idea to it into it and saying expand upon this thought or give me alternatives thought. People are saying I gotta cook dinner, what should I make? Yeah. Yeah, man, it's pretty dire. And so again, to download an MP3, that's getting to be that's an old technology now. People want to stream because it's an easier thing to do. Oh, I like that song. Push play. I come back tomorrow, go to that same spot, push play. It's still there. An MP3. Well, let me scroll through my phone menu, and because I want to listen to it. No, people aren't going to do that. And that's really and I'm on Bandcamp, as you know, and I'm considering putting a third album up on there because the alternative putting up on Spotify is even more dire than I'd rather have no streams than whatever Spotify does won't pay. It's just it's a trap. It's a trap. Mike, what do you think on FLAC or lossless audio formats? I don't have very much thoughts on that, to be honest with you. What is that? I actually was listening. It was more looking into the Atmos system and how they heavily promoted that, and a lot of the production studios, big ones, the medium sized one, invested in that, and it just ended up being a turkey that didn't make a difference. So Spotify is super evil and super greedy as well. Yeah. Cat's Music Journey, welcome. I started a record collection last year. It's nice getting back to listening to a full album while looking at the cover. My 6 year old also seems to enjoy a bit of vinyl. See, that's you pat, and the only way that those kind of behaviors are going to be learned by our children is by the parents passing them down to the children. And if the parents don't have that experience at all, then there's going to be nothing to pass down, and eventually you see where that goes. Correct, Mike. I only have music here on YouTube and Bandcamp. It's a case of the lesser evil. That's really what it is, Maddie and Scott and all the rest of us who do that. It's just, you know, but it's still a trap. It's still a hole. It's still pigeonholing you, and there's just that. But I'm actually considering again printing a physical album. But see, that's another thing. Printing a physical album is financially really high now. And if you were in the States and you were printing your albums over in China or someplace in Southeast Asia, that's sure to get a lot more expensive, didn't it? So that's another thing that's going to be a death knell for physical media down the road here. Expensive guitars for gigging, theft and travel risk. I started talking about Emily's troubles that she had with her guitar and broken neck last live stream. Mid-tier instruments is a smarter choice, and now not everybody's trying to be like Joe Bonamassa, and even Joe probably brings out a bunch of replicas sometimes of things. And for regular schmoes like us playing, medium, small to medium clubs, sure as hell don't need an expensive guitar. And by the way, because of the quality of the digital effects and things like that, you can have a less expensive guitar sound great now. A little investment in the pickups, you can have it sound fantastic. I can't wait. This analog setup and those really, really nice Q pickups that I have in my Strat, my Squire Strat, SE, it's just going to sound like butter. I know it. But a good Squire or mid-range guitar also handles any gig professionally. Again, there was a guy who gigged a Harley Benton. Of course, he changed the nut. He changed a few things on it, but it was still the bones, the basic bones of a Harley Benton. He toured in Las Vegas with that and was quite successful for 6 months, no problems. So, physical metronomes is number 9 on the list. Phone amps, DAWs do the job. Now, again, the Pocket Master not only has a metronome built into it that you can also set the BPM, but it also has 100 different drum loops and samples in it that you can use if you want to use the looper and play along with it. That function, by the way, the metronome you can use on the standalone unit. The drum samples, you have to have the phone connected to it. So again, I understand Scott's point, very strong point, but how often am I going to use that? I'm not even worried about that. But there is that. Excess gear in general. Minimalism is a strength, guys. That's what this channel was based upon. It was based upon the concept of I'm good. What does that mean? It means, well, one of the things it means is minimalism is strength. Less clutter equals more creativity, easier storage, and less stress when it comes if you have to pack it up and move it on, and less money that you put into it. It's not the most expensive studio in the world, but I can put out some great records. What I have, I'm good. If this Pocket Master ends up being what I hope it is, it will free up also the CPU on my computer because I can record the guitar tracks directly in it the way that I like them. I can print because I usually print anyway. Or I can run a splitter and through my box over here and do one dry track and one printed reverb. There's a lot of different things you can do there with that kind of setup, and it's less clutter to do that. And I can, by the way, I can of course run it here through my speakers, but I can also do it quietly at 2 a.m. I can have a full Marshall stack solo going at 2 a.m. wearing headphones, and nobody, by the time I'm done mixing it, would really say that it sounds bad. maybe my playing, but not the sound. So we covered. Let me get here in the chat here. Let's see. Yeah, I wish it was the '80s, but it's not. Yeah, no, no kidding. Short run records here will run you 3,000 for 100 vials. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't. I kind of got into a bit of a sidetrack there, but that was my point. Is that the cost of printing those? So you can't tell me. And then, okay, so $3,000 um, for 100 vinyls. So, you know, look at what kind of margin you're going to have to put on that in order to make that money back. And who's going to spend that kind of money on an album from an unknown artist? It's just not going to happen. See, they got you there too. They got you there too. That's a closed, venue. Most people I know here in DK that release music on vinyl say it starts at about 2K euro for a minimum run, and they get impressed here. That's why I know the cost because they do a lot of the printing here in the Netherlands, and so I looked into that. And when I saw the cost, yeah, it's 2K here. You can get it done here for 2K for a minimum run. But again, you got to look at what your margins are going to be on that. And are people going to be willing to spend 20, $30 on a vinyl? If you've got a good fan base, sure. Will it make you rich? No. Will it do anything to really promote you outside of that fan base? Probably not. It's they really got this. They have diabolically sat down and thought this out, kids. And all the exits are closing, and they're putting locks on them, and there's only one way to go. They're funneling everybody. It's so plain to see, very plain to see. New generations do not usually do not care about vintage. Yeah, I had a great example of that with the Pebble Beach car show. I told you, none of the old guys were trying to sell their cars, their classic cars. The young guys, they were interested in the newer, 2000 McLaren, stuff like that. They didn't want the 56 Corvette. They weren't interested. And I suspect, and I have suspected, and I will continue to suspect, the same thing is going to happen when these guys try to sell their vintage guitar collections, unless it comes from a known name. But, other than that, not a lot of chance there, too. What about the guys with 400 guitars and 500 amps? Andrew says, "Hey, Andrew. Yeah, that's basically what I think. I think that they're going to be in big trouble. I think they're, and again, like I said, guys, we're not going to live forever. You can't take it with you. Those are two truisms. A third one that's a possibility is that you pass away and your family has no idea what the value of any of those things are. I saw some on YouTube where these guys, I think Greg covered it. I'm sorry, Brad covered it. The storage unit somebody bought for $8,000 from that belonged to a musician, and they got in there and it was just full of a bunch of second-rate gear at best. I don't think they made their money back on that one actually. So, um, you know, when you die or when you gotta move on, the value of things is going to call into question, and it's not a good place to be for your family or for you. Mike, were you a fan of DeBarge in the '80s? Was I a fan of DeBarge in the '80s? Like, you listen to my song "The Lion," if you can look it up, guys, and listen to the acoustic guitar solo. That was my hardest of trying to sound like the guitar solo and What is his name? Oh, I forget that song. You know I really love you, baby. No, I really love you, darling. Say, baby. Why is that escaping me? All this love. That song. That's the one. And the Lion, that was my hardest to try. I don't know who played. I think it was Ben Bridges or somebody who played like that. But it's my really trying to hardest to play like Ben Bridges. So big influence on me, sure. Well, are they the same as El DeBarge with Who's Johnny? Yeah, yeah. Welcome to the debauchery. Yeah, Mike. Yeah, um, big influence on me. Big influence. Big influence on a lot of producers because those were some of the best Motown records ever produced during that time period. Can you really make money if you upload your music to a streaming service? No, not really. It's tough. I think YouTube will earn you more money. To be honest with you, you know, than some streaming services. And again, like I said, with Bandcamp, I think MP3 is dying like CDs and like vinyl. And if Bandcamp were to turn over to a streaming only thing, and then I think maybe they would actually see more success. But then, how would they pay? It gets into a lot of. Then it'd have to be a membership thing, and it doesn't work. Like I said, they've really thought this out, and it's just I really just try to show you guys all the different angles of how really effed up this is, you know, for musicians, and it's just dire, man. It's just ugly. And speaking of that, so we cover what guitarists don't really need. Let's zoom in on the biggest shift happening right now, getting back to amps. Tube amps are expensive, they're heavy, they're fragile, and most players just cannot justify the $1,500 plus for home or small venue use. If I've got $1,500 to spend on a tube amp, I'm gonna buy a quad cortex or a fractal before. I think quad cortex, one of those is around 16, 1700. I'm gonna buy that first before I buy a 2 amp these days because of the reasons that I just mentioned. I can use it at home, use it in the studio. I can use it, and I understand that guys who are pro studio musicians don't use them because they still need the analog pedals to tweak. But I even think that's bullshit too. I think that's bullshit too. Most players really can't justify that cost for an amp. Why spend 1,500 for an amp again? Like I said, when you can get a quad cortex, even if it's used for cheap for the same amount of money or cheaper. Nobody's going to do that anymore, especially the young generation, because they don't know anything about amps. They don't care. It's not in their purview. They have absolutely smashed the industry, Maddie says. One guy watched said, "Hey, I just go out and play live busk," and he kind of had a point. Let's revert back to the 1800s. Yeah, you know, um, grab your guitar with a case, sit out on a good corner that's got good flow through, and be honest with you, you know, play your songs and just busk it because you're getting back to the root. You're playing and you're performing. So it's not Madison Square Gardens. You're still doing something there. I always, if I have change and I see somebody busking, I always drop a coin or two in because you know, that's real. Andrew, yes, I'm done with amps. I use the Helix floor and looking to get an FM9. Yeah, yeah. Everybody's done with them. And the music shops are piling up with them. And they are not moving. And if you take an amp in that you spent $1,000 on, even a year or two ago into a shop now to sell or trade in, you're gonna get low ball to hell if they take it at all. If they may not take it. If it's a 1 by 12, you got a better chance. If it's quality or 1x8 quality, 1x8 quality, 1x10 quality, 1x12. That's it. That's it. Anything above that, 2x12s, 4x12s, nobody wants them. So yeah, and as a result of that, there's the decline. Tube amps are expensive. They're heavy, fragile. I can't justify the cost of them. The pedal revolution, the Line 6 HS Stomp, the Iridium, even on the lower end, like something with a Pocket Master, are replacing full rigs. It's small, portable, affordable, and they nail tones that once required amps plus the cab plus, the effects. It's all in there now. And, you know, again, depending upon the Pocket Master, I won't be using the preamps at all. I'll just be using the cabinets and the effects. And I think that'll give me 98% of there, especially if I can dial in the type of amp tone that I like. See, I have an Fender amp sound that I like. Once I got that with a certain amount of reverb on it, no compression, a couple of things in the chain, and once I got that dialed in with these pedals, then that's my amp. It's no, I look at it as no different. Yes, it's in a pedal form, but I'm not sitting there switching dials on it every time I sit down. I sit down, my cup of tea, turn everything on, plug in, and my amp is on. If I want to give it a little bit of a boost, I kick in the claw, and I'm good. Transparent overdrive, I'm good. And that is where you want to be. That's where you want to be. So small, portable, affordable. Small, portable, affordable. That's the trend. Now in the industry, big amp companies are struggling. Pedal and model makers are really carving out the market. However, the pedal makers who are not analog, so I'm not talking about Wampler, I'm not talking about JHS, I'm talking about the folks who bring you Axe Effect and Moore, all the other guys, those guys, they are taking over that market. They are dominating. They are not only making pathways into that market, they are just completely bulldozing their way through it. And every new pedal, like the Pocket Master for $50, by the way, drives another nail in the amp maker's coffin. Because I'm no longer thinking, I've been looking for a tube. I'm still looking for one, but it's got to be a 1x10 tube amp. I'm kind of looking for a 1x12 if I want to get back into my greenback again. But that's really just 1x8, 1x10, because I'm really using it just to play out, because I want to hear that amp sound every now and then. But other than that, it's not necessary. It's gravy, and I'm good without it. Maybe the real question isn't just what we don't need today, but what we'll stop needing tomorrow. And honestly, the way things are going, the amp market really is on life support. It's on life support. I'm good. Again, I'm good means smarter spending and being happy with what works for you. Your mileage may vary, but what works for you? This is all. Some of this stuff is, again, the individual user mileage may vary, but still, I think in general, it can be agreed that less is more. And these days, you can get a whole lot for a whole lot less. Unfortunately, the pathways to getting your music that you're creating with these cheaper devices heard is getting to be an equally high hurdle, even more so than in the past, I think, because you could always sell CDs or cassette tapes out of the trunk of your car like you used to do back in the day. But you can't do that anymore because people don't have tape players, they don't have CD players, they don't have record players, most people. So, I'm good is really the overarching theme of this tonight. And if I can get, again, my next goal is, not with these margins I'm getting on my guitars these days, but when I get some free cash, I hope one of these days, one of the things that I will splurge on. If I get splurge cash, let's put it that way. Again, like I said, I'm going to go fully, digital outside of DAW. I'm going to buy myself a 24 track hard disk, and I'll be happy with it. I can use that for until the end of my days, and I'm good. It's shrinking it down, shrinking it down, shrinking it down, shrinking it down, to the point where, again, you're sitting down and you're playing. You're not tweaking knobs. You're not trying new presets. You're not downloading NAM files. You're not doing any of that stuff. Set it and let it go. Set it and let it go. We should meet up at a pedal show in Europe. Yeah, Tommy. Viewers fly in to meet you and buy pedals. Yeah, I'm down to go to most. The next big one is going to be here in November in Vinendal, or is it September? September, November in Vinendal coming up here. Looking forward to that. I hope to have something in that works for that. I haven't even thought about that. Let me look that up if I can. Excuse me, guys, while I do this live. Check the date on this. September, 20th September. Yeah, um, I'm actually going to be there, and I'm actually probably going to put something up there. I'll have to ask my friend Patrick if he'll be interested in pointing me in a direction of where, well, if I get there early enough, I can. Anyway, we'll see. But yeah, Benidorm on the 20th. I will be there, guys, interestingly enough. Here's the thing, Maddie says. If you are driven to make music, do it. Spend as little as possible and have fun. Treat it like a hobby, not like a career. I agree. It used to be my career. It is no longer, but it is part of a wider thing that I do. I've heard you talk about that show for years now. It would be a dream to attend. Yeah, you know, I I think that Vinendal is one of my favorite shows because they have good examples of the kind of crap that nobody's going to be buying later on. I'm kidding. They have a lot of great stuff, and cash is king. And if you want to experience and get a good education, it's like going to a museum that you can actually touch the pieces most of the times, and it gives you a good education as well. I'm going to go there with money in my pocket, I hope, and guitars on my back, I hope, and see what happens this time. I skipped the last one, but this one I'm going to. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I'd love to have you come, Tommy. I'd love to have you here. All right. So guitar gear that you can actually live without. Again, my hero is Prince. Always will be because he made records with nothing, minimal. Yeah, a guitar, his his bass amp, his Mesa Boogie amp, OBXA keyboard, a couple of keyboard, his CP70 stage piano, and a 16 track recorder, and not even a recording board. It was more actually an AV board or an audio board, and that was it. And he made 1999 on that. on that. He finished it, you know, at a 24-track studio, but those primary tracks on that, the drum and his drum machine, of course, his Lynn drum machine. Those are all the instruments that he had in his studio. He didn't have 10 guitars. As a matter of fact, sometimes when he would Jesse would bring his guitar, and Prince would use Jesse's guitar on a lot of the tracks. So Jesse Johnson's guitar, because Prince had he didn't have 50,000 guitars during that period. And he had his pedal board, of course. Again, a very minimal setup. And he walked in, everything was all set up, all mic'd up, and he was just working. He wasn't, doing too much tweaking. So just my point. Just, gear you can live without. And these days, do you take stuff like this and give it to a guy like Prince? If you imagine if you could take the Pocket Master, just that, and give that to Prince, and in 1981, 82 when he was making 1999. Can you imagine what he would come up with that? I intend on using that Pocket Master in a way that Prince used his pedal board with his Lynn drum machine. Is I plan on running drums through it for different drum effects on some stuff that I'm doing. A little bit more different kind of music that I have in my mind. But using the Pocket Master will make a great substitute for that, because I can, so I can duplicate Prince's pedal board and pretty much, do exactly what he did. Could you imagine? He would hate it though, because again, it's tactile. But in the studio for him, if he may actually tell you the truth, he may hate that too. Now that I really think of it, I think he would do a lot with it. He would make it work like him, but I think he would hate the fact that you can't, necessarily stomp things on it. So maybe there's something to that. Yeah, he used Boss pedals. That's correct, Andrew. He through his entire life. And his wall pedal was super cheap too. It was just I forget the name of it, red wall pedal, volume wall pedal. Who makes that? Can't even think of them right now. Same guys who make the TC Electronics. That was his volume wall pedal, a TC Electronic later on in life. Not expensive stuff. Anyway, just a food for thought, guys. Food for thought tonight. All right, I am going to go to bed. Got a tough week ahead of me, so I hope I don't get beat up too much. And I will, of course, see you guys on Wednesday for the Wednesday Night Hump. I want to thank you, Scott. I want to thank you, Maddie, for moderating. Now, I saw a report that said that 50% of the internet now is bots. I think some nights half of them show up here. But I want to thank all of you guys for showing up and listening to this live stream and being here. I hope you enjoyed the topic. I hope it was a little bit of food for thought for you. I want to say God bless each and every one, and God watch after each and every one of you guys. Until the next one, you guys take care. Mike, look up Bill Wolfer. He was Michael Jackson's key player in the 80s. He was on YouTube talking about those days. Yes. I have looked that up. And boy, I love, he was going through one tune and playing the chords. Yeah, I know that one. Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.